Chapter 6. "How was the first day?" Ellie asked as Audrey dropped her purse on the floor and collapsed into the couch. Audrey exhaled a giant sigh. "I don't think I'm cut out for secretarial work. Everything went wrong. The only positive part of the entire day was lunch, and the coffee Blake brought me this morning." Ellie's eyebrow lifted and she crossed her arms. "Who's Blake?" Audrey shook her head. "A peer from high school. He said I looked as if I could use a pick-me-up, and he brought me a coffee." "Yeah, I'm sure he's just a guy from high school," her sister stated sarcastically. "Sounds like he has a soft spot for you." "Stop it. I'm a single mom still struggling to lose baby weight. I'm not what one might call a hot commodity." Self-esteem had never been Audrey's strongest suit. It was probably why she had fallen for Caden's father in the first place. She had known Tony hadn't been the marrying kind, but she had let herself believe she could change him. "You are incredible, little sis. Don't sell yourself short." Ellie patted Audrey on the shoulder before grabbing her bag. "Caden was perfect today. He laid down for a nap an hour ago. I'd stay and chat, but I promised Philip I'd make dinner tonight." "Thanks, sis. See you tomorrow?" Audrey pushed herself off the couch to give Ellie a hug before shutting the door behind her. As the silence descended, her mind rehashed Eliana's remarks. Could Blake be attracted to her? Or was he being nice because she was the boss's daughter? Before she could reach a conclusion, Caden's cry pierced the air. With a sigh, she pushed the prospect of romance from her mind and headed to Caden's room. Audrey arrived at work the next morning, eager to try out her new idea. After taking care of Caden the night before, her mind had wandered back to the possibility of Blake's attraction. And while she wasn't sure she was ready to date yet, she could use companionship. So she had decided to ask him to dinner. If he declined, then he had brought the coffee to be nice. If he said yes, either he liked her or at least wanted to become better friends. It wasn't a foolproof system, but it was better than waiting and wondering. After straightening the desk from the disarray she left it in yesterday, Audrey sat in the chair and began the task of reviewing documents for the day, while keeping one eye peeled for Blake. He entered a moment later, smiling her direction. "Morning. Better day today?" "Well, we'll see," she answered with a slight laugh. "Thank you for the coffee yesterday. It was the highlight of the day." "You're welcome. Anytime." So I was wondering." A bout of shyness descended on Audrey, tying her tongue and forcing her eyes to the desk. "I wanted to invite you to dinner." She glanced up from lowered lids. "As a thank you." The dimple appeared in his cheek as he returned the smile. "While no further thanks is needed, I'd love to have dinner with you. In fact, I wanted to ask you out, but you beat me to the punch." Audrey's cheeks heated. "Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder." "I don't care who asks," Blake said, his eyes twinkling. "I'm looking forward to dinner with you." An odd, stirring sensation fluttered through Audrey's heart. "Here is the address," she said, holding out the paper she had written her address on moments earlier. "I'll make spaghetti tonight if you want to come by around 7. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." The ringing phone halted any further conversation, and he flashed a wave as she picked up the handset. Though her attention should have been on the caller, she couldn't help but watch Blake exit the room. When work ended, Audrey hurried out of the office and to the general store. Not sure if she had everything she'd need at home, she decided to just purchase all the needed ingredients. The dinner had to be perfect. The sky outside was darkening as she parked the car. Was it possible it might snow tonight? Audrey hoped it would hold off at least long enough for her to get home. As the chill permeated her coat, she ducked into the store and grabbed a basket. Pasta, sauce, meat, and bread found their way into her basket and then onto the checkout conveyor belt. With the bill paid and the groceries tucked in the front seat, she sped home. "Can you stay a little longer tonight?" she asked Ellie as she muscled the bags into the house. Why? What is all this? Ellie asked, her forehead wrinkling in confusion. I'm fixing dinner for Blake. A sly smile crossed Ellie's face, and her left brow arched. Just friends, huh? It's a reciprocal gesture for yesterday, Audrey said, and a test to see if my feelings are more than surface attraction. Uh-huh. A simple thank you wouldn't suffice? You had to cook the man dinner? Audrey set the bags on the counter and turned to her sister. Okay, he's cute, and I'm not sure I'm ready to date yet, but it couldn't hurt to see if there's something there, right? Of course not. And I don't think it's too early to date either. You said Tony left when he found out you were pregnant, right? Audrey nodded, not wanting to correct her sister and share that Tony stayed until she gained weight and started wearing stretchy pants. Then I think it's time you forgot him and looked forward to the future. And this Blake sounds like a nice change. Now, go shower and clean up. I'll start the spaghetti. Thanks, Ellie. Eliana nodded before shooing Audrey out of the kitchen. After a quick shower and a change of clothes, Audrey returned to the kitchen to take over, but Caden had woken, and Ellie shoved the bottle in her hand and ushered her to the living room instead. Gratitude flooded Audrey. It had been hard being away from Caden all day, and she relished holding him and watching him eat. But a small part of her felt guilty that Ellie was slaving away in the kitchen, making a dinner she promised to someone else. It was spaghetti, which wasn't rocket science, but still, Ellie had her own husband to cook for. The doorbell rang as Caden finished his bottle. After setting it on the table, Audrey stood and opened the door for Blake, who had changed as well. His dark green shirt brought out tiny tan flecks in his eyes, but it was the flowers in his hand that captured her attention. The small bouquet held 6 delicate orange roses, and she wondered if he understood their meaning of bridging a friendship into a romance. You look beautiful, he said, holding them out to her. Thank you. You do too. I mean, handsome. You're handsome. He smiled as she stumbled over the words. Dropping her eyes, she took the roses with her free hand and waved him inside. He followed her into the kitchen, where Ellie was putting the finishing touches on dinner. This is my sister, Eliana. She's been watching Caden for me while I work, and she made dinner tonight. But only because you needed time with your son, Ellie said, jumping in and smoothing Audrey's awkward statement. Hi, I'm Ellie, she added, sticking out her hand. Blake, he responded, returning the shake. Ellie wiggled her eyebrows at Audrey in approval before turning back to the stove. And this is my son Caden, Audrey said, thankful that Blake hadn't seemed to catch Ellie's gesture. He's the reason I'm back in town. He has your smile. And he's going to go lay down and give you guys dinner time, Ellie said as she took Caden from Audrey's arm. Ellie, you don't have to. You've already been with him all day. Nonsense. I already checked in with Philip and he has to work late, so I have nowhere to be. This way, I can keep him entertained and you two can have a nice dinner as adults. Before Audrey could protest, Ellie fled with Caden, leaving Audrey and Blake staring awkwardly at each other. Blake broke the ice first. Your sister is amazing. Yes, she is. Audrey laughed, easing the nervous tension in the room. And the dinner smells marvelous. It would be a shame to let it get cold. So, shall we? Of course. Yes, let's eat. Audrey grabbed 2 plates from her small collection and handed him one. She scooped a portion of spaghetti and added a slice of bread to the plate in her hand, and then traded plates with Blake and filled the second one. 2 glasses of water sat on the table waiting for them. To a nice dinner with an old friend, Audrey said, raising her glass in a toast. To new possibilities, Blake added, as he clinked her glass. The words sent a tingle through Audrey's body. Did that mean he liked her? Would you mind if I prayed before we eat? Her daydream crashed down at his words. He was religious? She had never been one for religion herself. It held too many rules that reminded her of her overbearing mother. But as Blake was a guest in the house, she kept her opinion to herself and nodded her head. One little prayer wouldn't hurt anything, but the flames she had felt fanning inside her now smoked as if doused with water. When he finished, an uncomfortable silence fell across the table, and Audrey wondered if she should just end the date. But a voice inside her head wanted to know why. "Why do you pray?" The question seemed to catch Blake off guard, and he blinked at her. "You mean you don't?" Audrey shook her head. "I was never religious. My parents never saw the need, but I tried praying in Hollywood. God didn't answer." She picked up a piece of garlic bread and took a bite. "What were you praying for?" he asked, "if you don't mind me asking." Audrey shrugged. "I prayed to find work, and I received enough roles to pay the rent. Then I met Tony, and things improved until I got pregnant. I prayed not to be pregnant, but that one wasn't answered. When Tony left me, I prayed for work, but God didn't answer that one either." Blake's lips folded in as if he were biting the inside of them. After a long pause, he spoke. "I'm not God, and I can't explain why it sometimes seems as if he says no to our requests. But I think you might want to try praying in a different way." Audrey's eyes flicked to his. "There's a wrong way to pray?" "No," he shook his head, "but a different way of praying. Jesus said we are to pray, 'Thy will be done.' Yet many of us pray just like you did, for our will to be done." "I never knew that." Even though her words were audible, they were quiet, meant more for herself than his benefit. Another silence descended between them, but it wasn't an uncomfortable one this time. Audrey racked her brain for something to say when Blake sucked in his breath and pointed outside. "Oh my goodness, it's snowing." Audrey whipped her head around, excitement filling her. "I love the snow, but I haven't seen it in years. LA doesn't get snow." "Then let's go enjoy it." Blake pushed back his chair and held out his hand. "But our dinner—" "We'll be here when we return. Come on." With a laugh that tinkled like a bell and set her eyes sparkling, Audrey accepted his hand, and the two ran to the living room to grab their coats before stepping outside. Though chilly, the air was not biting cold yet. "I'd forgotten how pretty it was," Audrey said with a sigh, throwing her arms out and twirling in a small circle. "It's not as pretty as you are right now." Blake held her gaze as she paused and turned to him. A pink color tinted her lips, and a tingle of embarrassment traveled through her veins. "I'm not where I'd like to be. This baby weight is stubborn." Her eyes dropped to the ground as her self-consciousness took over. With one large step, Blake covered the distance between them and grabbed her hands. "You are beautiful, Audrey McAllister. I've thought so since the first day I saw you in high school." "But this isn't high school," Audrey began, glancing up at him from the corner of her eye. "I'm glad it's not," he said with a smile. "I wouldn't have the nerve to do this if it were." With his right hand, he tilted her face up until their eyes met. The intensity radiating from his eyes caused her to take a breath and part her lips. As if in slow motion, his head lowered until his lips gently brushed hers. The kiss was over in an instant, but the heat from his lips flamed across hers long after he had pulled back. "I've wanted to kiss you like that for years." "Blake, I don't know if I'm ready to jump into a relationship again," Audrey said. Though her body screamed yes, her head kept flashing a yield sign. "That's okay, Audrey. I don't mind waiting for you. I'll wait as long as it takes." Blake smiled as he left Audrey's house. Kissing her had been better than he'd imagined, and even though she said she wasn't ready for a relationship, he believed she was more open than she admitted. He wanted to share his good news with someone, and he pointed his car toward the diner. Max was locking the door as he approached. "Well, someone looks like the cat who ate the canary," Max said, opening the door to let him in. "I guess you had a good night." "It was amazing," Blake said, brushing the snow off his jacket. "That's good." Max picked up the chairs, turning them upside down on the tables. But, though he hadn't said it, Blake felt the unsaid word. Nothing. I just don't want to see you hurt again. I don't know Audrey well, but she left once. How do you know she'll stick around this time? I don't, Blake said, trying to hold on to the elated feeling he had walked in with. I guess I'll just have to trust that God brought her back into my life for a reason. Max shook his head. I don't understand your faith, but for your sake, I'll hope so too.